All right, our panel is here to talk about the DeFi infrastructures and how they're taking the world by storm. Please give a warm welcome to our moderator of today's discussion. He's a partner at Goodwin, John Servideo.
All right, so we're going to talk a bit about DeFi, and my background as a lawyer, raising capital for DeFi companies, and dealing with the regulatory side. But really, I think the most exciting thing here in DeFi is really the basic infrastructure, that enables the on-ramps to DeFi. That's going to accelerate the growth of DeFi going forward, and the panel can really add a lot of insight in what's happening in terms of cybersecurity, KYC, AML, custody, the general user experience. So I'll let them introduce themselves and tell them what they're doing and what their company's doing to sort of the future of DeFi is infrastructure, which is really going to build the broader adoption, in my view, of DeFi, as a use case and as a tool for finance. So, Roger.
Hi, my name is Roger Wang. Despite my title as head of global sales, I have a long background in product and engineering. PrimeTrust is a regulated qualified custodian. We provide financial infrastructure servicing both fiat and crypto. So the role of a custodian would be very applicable in the DeFi space, as it provides that on-ramp, which is the primary service that we provide to a lot of our integrated customers, a regulated onboarding, compliant onboarding starting point for the journey into DeFi.
Hey guys, my name is Sunny. I'm one of the co-founders of a project called Osmosis. It is a DEX built on its own blockchain. And yeah, just working on bringing decentralized finance to the masses.
Sure. My name is Boris Alagon. I'm the head of DeFi markets at Ripple. Ripple is a software company that builds on top of the XRP ledger, which is a permissionless decentralized blockchain. Been around for almost 10 years. Our flagship product is RippleNet, processes about $15 billion a year of payment flows on behalf of institutions. We're really trying to remove the frictions associated with cross-border payments.
My name is Favio. I work at Sologenic, handle growth and partnerships, which is a fancy title for doing marketing and business development. We focus on, like Ripple, leveraging the XRPL for providing an ecosystem for trading of real-life assets as well as crypto. And in that sense, we've been trying to disrupt the entry barrier to this space, to DeFi space. We also have a wallet and fiat of ramps and whatnot to make it as easy as possible.
So, Flavio, tell us a bit what Sologenic is doing in terms of to increase, liquidity, to increase user adoption, whether it's KYC, AML, cybersecurity. Tell us about what you guys are working on, what you see to increase liquidity and adoption of DeFi.
Definitely. I see three main points in that question. The first one that we are focusing on is on user onboarding. So making it the Web3 experience is similar to Web2 in a way that the user knows where their assets are at all times. And also it's intuitive in a way to use. So that's why we created our own wallet. That's why we implemented fiat on ramps. And that's why we also have a bridge to Binance Smart Chain, because I do still see a lot of users see more trust in centralized exchanges, but we're trying to shift that into decentralized exchanges by providing a similar experience that you would have trading on Binance, for example, but you're trading on a DEX on the XRPL. In terms of KYC, we are not currently, we don't have to do it since we're decentralized, but for when it comes to the tokenization of assets, stocks, ETFs, in that side of the company, we do have to, of course, have a very compliant and regulated KYC system. And for that, I think we're using automated technology that makes it as fast as possible to shoot a video of yourself, and then we also see a real of value in this KYC being interoperable in a way. So we're betting on companies that actually facilitate a login that you could use on any protocol of different blockchains, like a blockchain agnostic login feature. I think that's what would drive further adoption of DeFi protocols in general.
And then, Boris, tell us a bit, what Ripple is doing to, drive the adoption and the use case of, including maybe payments of DeFi forward.
Yeah, so on the DeFi side, we're really in a research capacity. We're a corporation that works with highly regulated financial institutions for RippleNet, which doesn't use DeFi, but it uses the XRP ledger, which is a blockchain. We've been working with institutions, financial regulated, highly regulated institutions from the start. And so we've always, if we're going to do something in DeFi, we're going to make sure that our target customers are comfortable with it. We want to make sure they're comfortable from a regulatory perspective, from a UX perspective, from a security perspective. So at this point, like I said, we're just in the research phase. Obviously, there's a lot to unpack there. Why institutions haven't gone to adopting DeFi? Primarily, I would say there's really two reasons. One is UX, right? Has been pretty terrible. The onboarding process is really difficult. Institutions can figure out a way to enable that for everyone, right? It should be logging on to DeFi or interacting in a DeFi ecosystem should be as easy as going on your online banking account, right? Your mom, your grandmother should be able to do it. Two, I think the other thing limiting is really regulation, the lack of regulatory clarity in the space. And that's really hindering DeFi. And that's regulatory clarity and really a playground of rules from an AML KYC perspective, but also a categorization of the asset perspective. How should these digital assets be viewed and the different economic schemes behind them?
Another issue, in my view, that hinders the broader adoption of DeFi is, cybersecurity, data privacy. It's one of my biggest concerns, and it's one of the hardest things for me to advise, clients and investors on. Sunny, what are your thoughts on in terms of privacy and cybersecurity that improvements we may see in the future?
Yeah, so one of the things that we work on a lot at Osmosis is focusing on a lot of the privacy side of things. I think one of actually the understated drawbacks of DeFi right now is it's actually arguably less private than using a centralized exchange. When you make a trade on a decentralized exchange on a public blockchain, everyone can see exactly which account is making which trade. You can see the entire history of every trade, and this is fully public for everyone. And this is not an acceptable thing for most traders, right? Traders don't want to be leaking their trading strategies. We also have this huge problem with front running in decentralized exchanges where you make a transaction, you make a trade, and everyone can see that trade before it gets executed. And this leads to all these front running and sandwich attacks and all these sorts of things. So, what we're trying to do is get it so decentralized exchanges can at the very least match the privacy of centralized exchanges and hopefully exceed them. Because with a centralized exchange, the public can't see what you're doing, but the exchange operator still can. FTX back when it existed was probably just selling all your data to, or not selling it, just handing off the data to Alameda, right? And giving their partners an edge. And that doesn't make for fair and free market. So, privacy is the bedrock on which fair markets have to be built on.
Another thing, at least for me personally, that hinders, I would use DeFi more is really the custody issue, right? Is storing your crypto, and then getting liquidity that you need to really trade successfully. And Roger, can you tell us a bit how PrimeTrust is solving some of the custody challenges in DeFi? Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I think the traditional financial infrastructure of the separation of exchanges, whether it be centralized or decentralized, your broker dealers and then your custodians, it's still a very rational form to provide the checks and balances so that people can have the transparency, the security, the compliant manner of conducting business. At PrimeTrust, we provide all of our services and technology through API. So like what Favio alluded to in providing, having that onboarding, performing the KYC and AML, we have that you could integrate PrimeTrust into your application to provide a good user onboarding experience. So like some of our customers, if some of you have used the service from Swan, their onboarding process is very smooth, very user-friendly, and it's powered by PrimeTrust in the back end, right? And having that compliant fiduciary custodian brings that transparency and that level of security, that the ease of mind for users to access DeFi.
So we actually use PrimeTrust and Osmosis in the back end, where how we do like fiat on-ramping onto a decentralized exchange is that we work with a partner called Cato, who is a client of PrimeTrust, and what they do is they allow users to onboard into USDC with fiat, and then it converts into any token on the DEX by just routing through the on-chain liquidity. So it's like the goal is that we, as much as possible, we can try to remove even the fiat on-ramping user flow away from centralized exchanges onto decentralized exchanges, leveraging things like PrimeTrust.
You mentioned DEXs. Maybe Fabio, what's the post FTX? What's the state of distributed exchanges and and DeFi in terms of where are DEXs? Where are we going forward now in that space?
I think it's in general there has been some traffic that has definitely went out of crypto in general, or like lost a bit of trust. Like we have to admit that. But I definitely see some movement towards DeFi from especially private wallets and self-custody. A lot of people are starting to become more aware that that's not your crypto, not your crypto. We've heard a lot of that, and I think we're gonna see like even more of this as more DeFi protocols become more prominent in the industry. And I think, and I agree with Boris, that the way to make this possible is through institutions, because if we see banks using this technology, that would increase trust in a way. For example, Sologenic currently is also building a layer 1 blockchain called Quorum. And in this blockchain, we are trying to cater all of the enterprise solutions or needs that regulated institutions can use to be compliant. And in that sense, we, for example, have optional KYC. So you can, like, developers that do decentralized applications can turn it on if you want to have like banking or financial systems there. And we also have smart tokens functionality, which basically embeds smart contracts inside of tokens, so they can execute functions without having to recall external contracts. And that could be used for taxes, for example, or disallow transactions, and a lot of functions that I think are very appealing for enterprises to drive the adoption of DeFi.
You touched on institutional adoption and enterprise use of DeFi, and one of the biggest users of that, or facilitators of that, is Ripple. How does Ripple sort of facilitate the payments and the infrastructure of DeFi specifically amongst institutions, enterprises?
And just to clarify, Ripple has facilitated the use of blockchain technology, right? Our customers use blockchain technology,
but DeFi specifically,
but not DeFi.
But not that so much.
Not DeFi. Now, our flagship product, ODL and RippleNet, uses blockchain technology, uses the XRP ledger for transactions, for sending payments, cross-border remittances. It removes a lot of those frictions that we see in traditional financial markets. In order to get to the space where institutions are going to start using it, I do a lot of research, and I look at it. What is it going to take for an institution to start using DeFi? Well, one, I think there's got to be regulation around it, right? They have to be comfortable from a regulatory perspective. Uniswap might be the most liquid venue right now, but institutions, traditional finance, highly regulated institutions, have trouble getting comfortable trading on a Uniswap. Why? Well, AML KYC concerns, right? that's a real problem in the space. Two, I think also the UX, right, isn't the friendliest. So institutional adoption is really important to bringing DeFi to the masses. And I think we need to start looking at decentralized finance as a technology, right? As a technology that creates efficiencies that will lower costs. A lot of the rise of DeFi in 2021, right, in DeFi summer was really led by speculation. We had record level zero interest rates, right? And people were just chasing yield. And that had led to a lot of activity and growth in DeFi. With this bear market, people are going to be focused on building and looking at DeFi as a technological stack that will increase, efficiencies. In the end, right, as a user, you don't really care if your trade goes through a DEX or a centralized exchange. All you care is that it's fast, cheap, and it's safe. And those are the three things that matter. And institutions are the way that most people right now interact with with finance, quite frankly, right? You bank through your bank. And as much as we hate the banks, there's certain things they offer that's great. For instance, have you ever had your account hacked in a bank, your bank account? You sent the payment to the wrong place or something like that? You call up your bank, right? And they'll refund you. That doesn't exist in DeFi. So these simple kind of consumer protections aren't there yet. And so, we're all talking about Web3 and how we're going to move to Web3, and the shift from Web2 to Web3 is just flicking a switch. It's really not like that. It's going to be more gradual. We need to get to Web 2.1, Web 2.2, Web 2.5 before we can even get to Web3.
And speaking of regulation, one of the biggest things in my view for my clients are, a lot of my clients are institutional, funds, which are registered investment advisors, and they need to custody at, only certain, state chartered institutions, which is challenging for keeping your crypto and trading your crypto, yet complying with, SEC regulations, notwithstanding the other securities laws. And, how are you guys, solving for that?
Yeah, I think what Boris said is very true. It shouldn't really matter, and the end consumer and user should not care whether they're sourcing the liquidity from centralized exchanges or decentralized exchanges, as long as they get the best price, right? And PrimeTrust is working with existing wealth management sectors, the platforms that give access to firms like asset managers, RIAs, independent wealth advisors, to get access to crypto. And over time, that could include DEXs as well, right? As a regulated fiduciary entity, our responsibility is very straightforward. We service our customers. We execute the directions of our customers. So you don't have to worry about your funds being utilized in a manner that isn't to your expectations or put at risk.
Sonny, where do you see the future of DeFi in 2 years? What about 5 years? It's a tough question, but I think it's the one that people really want to think of. Is we may be at an inflection point, especially with DeFi, because people say, well, CeFi is a lot of risks, but we like certain benefits. Maybe DeFi is the answer. Maybe not. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the way we're designing Osmosis' product is that our goal is that by the time the next bull market comes around, we should be able to be people's first onboarding step into crypto, right? Today, if you told someone to get onboarded to crypto, you send them to Coinbase, right? And our goal is how can we build a product that's better, safer, and easier to use than Coinbase? And so, I think that's what we're working on. Especially in the 2-year time scale, is that we should be able to be at that level. Farther down the road, 5-10 years, my view is that I have this vision of how everything is how DeFi is going to change monetary systems as a whole. We're going to move towards a world where all assets have more liquidity, more moneyness to them. People are going to be able to declare, put on chain, say hey, this is a portfolio of assets I want. And then you start sending payments to people and it automatically converts into the portfolio that you want. Visa does this today. If I go to a foreign country, I swipe my credit card, I'm paying in dollars. The merchant is receiving whatever asset they want, whichever fiat currency that they want. We want the same thing, but to be possible with any asset. And as more assets become blockchain native digital assets, that's just going to become more and more feasible. So yeah.
Fabio, what do you see in 2023 as the biggest risk to DeFi and the biggest opportunity in DeFi next year?
I think I also like to think about DeFi as technology, and I think the regulators need to see that it's not a power struggle, it's like another opportunity. And in that sense, I do feel like in the future, the whole financial market is going to be integrated in distributed ledger technology, not necessarily DeFi, but DeFi will be an option for people that are using that. In that sense, the opportunities that I see are, for example, in the tokenization of identity. The possibilities this gives you, like just to name some use cases, for example, you hold your identity on the blockchain, and then when you trade or where you go even to like online stores, perhaps you log in with that identity that it's verified on the blockchain, and then you get certain discounts or whatnot. It's just an example I had at the top of my head. But overall, I see the tokenization of digital assets being very, like next year, 2023, being a hot topic for real. Stocks, ETFs, commodities, even equity. I definitely see that's the opportunity for 2023, and that's what we're focusing on at Sologenic.
Could that also facilitate the KYC AML challenges that DeFi faces?
Absolutely, they have to go hand to hand. We definitely need some more regulatory clarity, but if it doesn't come from the government, at least what we can do is drive the key players in the industry to kind of go by the same rules. I wouldn't say rules, but just procedure. And definitely KYC and AML is like it has to be on DeFi as well, for sure.
Boris, what do you see as the biggest regulatory challenge or the biggest hurdle facing the in terms of a regulatory or legal regulatory risk or challenge for DeFi?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sound like a broken record, right? But it's really two, right? It's the AML KYC regulatory environment and the characterization of digital assets from a regulatory perspective, right? Those are really the two biggest things that are holding this industry back, at least in the United States. And you've seen a lot of other parts of the world provide some sort of regulatory clarity. If you give us the rules, show us what the playground looks like, we'll figure out a way to play. And that's the biggest issue I see. And I think everybody on this panel can agree on that.
Yeah, and I think regulatory uncertainties, probably other panelists have talked about it. But also there's the regulatory environment could be a benefit, like for a custodian, it could provide the gateway for KYC AML, and it could provide an entry point for regulators to get comfortable to regulate that entity to give space to the rest of the infrastructure. Roger, what are your thoughts about sort of KYC AML and the regulatory environment and how custodians may be able to solve a lot of that?
Yeah, definitely a custodian could help from that aspect. But even as a custodian, we are troubled by the uncertainty in the regulatory landscape too. Imagine trying to service a customer when an asset's defined maybe as security or maybe not, right? And that makes a huge difference in terms of how we service that. But I think, yeah, once they define it, as Boris said, once they define the playground, then we're very excited as a custodian to help facilitate that. Bring the customers in a compliant manner, onboard your fiat, get the assets into the ecosystem, and then be prepared to be deployable into DeFi.
Now, some parting thoughts. Quick hits from the panel. Fabio, what are your parting thoughts on DeFi?
Well, definitely what Roger was mentioning about the Howey or like the security law. I think that's something that needs clarity ASAP in a way. That was written in 1946. It's very obsolete in a way, and I feel like they need to come up with a way to know how to identify what is a security or not. But also, we need more players that are perhaps from a newer generation to step into those positions, that they understand technology, they understand how digital assets work, and yeah, that's my
Sunny, parting thoughts on the state of DeFi?
No, just really excited for where we're going, and yeah, I think working on fixing these UX and privacy issues is how we actually make this stuff real.
Boris, you want to wrap us up with the last
Sure.
thought?
Yeah, I mean, like it's obviously been a challenging year for everyone, a lot of volatility. And I think there is some silver lining that will come out of this. And I want to end things on an optimistic note. Regulators are hearing people. The FTX debacle, what happened with Alameda, has gotten the attention of regulators. And I have a feeling we might finally see that regulatory clarity that we so desperately need that can take this industry to the next level. So I'm really excited about that in the future.
Yeah, I think some good will come out of FTX where it'll motivate our regulators and our politicians to make a decision on the future of regulation, for better or for worse. But I think we're all going to agree DeFi has gotten to a place where the rules of the road are now needed. And so I think it'll create a watershed moment where we can get some regulation and rules of the road moving forward. And so I think there'll be maybe some good coming out of it. If maybe I'm just looking at things at the bright side. So anyways, I'm very optimistic on the future of DeFi, the infrastructure needed. And I do think that, we're going to see accelerated growth in the near future, despite the regulatory challenges, which you guys have all thought about. So with that, that's our DeFi panel. I'd like to thank Favio Velarde. I'd like to thank Roger Wang here from PrimeTrust, Sunny from Osmosis, and Boris from our friends at Ripple.
Thank you.
Thank you,
All right,
John.
thank you.
Pleasure. Bye-bye.
All right, let's hear it one more time. And thank you to all of our panelists for joining us on the stage.